At number 58 on the Iconic 100 list is the 1997 Metal Universe Championship Michael Jordan, which includes the PMG serial numbered out of 50. And here today to talk to us about this card, the one and only Grant Slayton, Waldorf Stories on Instagram. Grant, I know that this is a card that not only is meaningful to me, but is a super meaningful card to you as well. What do you think as you hear that it's number 58 on the list? I believe you had it, by the way, at number 74 on the top 100 list.
That's what I was just about to say. Is I'm very, very surprised to see it in the 50s. Truly surprised. That card is absolutely legendary, beautiful design, everything, but it's just not widely available.
Right.
Like a jambalaya, even though that's low print. It's just it's something I didn't even expect to see in the top 100, but it certainly has a place there.
So here's what's really funny about this one. This is, I think most people would argue, who know my collection, they probably argue this is the best card that I have in my collection. And it's a card that you've loved for a long time as well, and you own a copy of. And so here you are ranking it at number 74, and I ranked it at 71, but the whole of the 150 people that we polled, they have it, at a combined 58. So, I think it's funny because people would think that if you own a card, you're likely to put it higher on the list. Well, that's actually the opposite here. And I think part of that, Grant, is that you never want to go out and say my cards are the best and try to hold them out in front of everybody else. What you want to do is you want to be fair about it. And I just think it's really funny that both you and I had it so much lower on the list than the rest of the, than the rest of the people who were polled.
When I was going through that list and really thinking of the iconic pieces out there that I remember looking at as a kid in the Beckett's, everything to the going to shows, to seeing what moves liquidly from one collection to another. This card doesn't really fit that bill. But when you look at it as a whole, what it represents a lot that the card has going for it, it's the entire decade of the 90s for me, what that card is. But I've only seen one available at a show ever in the last 10 years. So it's very surprising to see it this high on the list. Very cool.
I think you've got people who think about, when they hear PMG, they think about the red and the green, and then they see this one and they go, oh, that's the other PMG. Maybe explain to everyone why this is more than just another PMG. What is it about this specific card that warrants its placement on the Iconic 100 list?
Well, a lot of people, like you said, thought it was a different series, a series 2 of the Iconic Metal Universe, but its standalone set being the championship series, and only about 60 NBA players were chosen for that. So on average, 2 from each team. The Bulls had 3. And, the actual design of it with the lenticular, not lenticular, what do you call that, Adam?
I've heard people call it my kid calls it the bubble, but that's wrong. I've heard people call it the spheres, but most people call it the scope.
So seeing that being the only insert from the 90s that matters, using that, just an incredible finish on it. But the card itself showcasing the city skyline of Chicago. Chicago in the 1990s was the center of the universe for basketball. What the Bulls did for that city is unparalleled to this day. You saw what LeBron did for Cleveland while he was there. Now, what the Bulls did for Chicago, they were the absolute center for the basketball universe for a decade. And seeing that entire city skyline with Jordan soaring through it's special. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you brought up this background. A lot of people sort of might look at the card, especially the PMG that has the scope, which sort of is what your eyes totally gravitate towards. Some people may not even recognize that you get that Chicago skyline, but every card in the set has a background that is specifically designed for that set. The Jordan, though, really is the one that is sort of above them all. And you know, from my perspective, there's some other cards that we could certainly talk about being ultra recognizable from the set, but not only do you get the Bulls skyline, you get Karl Malone sort of peeking into the card. And you know, the Mailman's one of my favorite players of all time. I'm a big Jazz homer. Jordan's greatest nemesis in the finals, the only team that they played twice, was those Jazz teams. And so, you know, being the championship series, having Jordan go past Malone with this awesome background, with this cool scope, and then also, Grant, turn it around and look at the reverse of the card. The back of this card is gorgeous. You get Jordan in the black pinstripes, right? Am I right? Is it black pinstripes?
Yes, you are right. Yeah.
You think I know this, having card, and then you've got the full bleed dark edges, the serial number in the bottom right. It's just a fantastic back of the card as well.
Oh, it's incredible all around. A lot of collectors, even strong 90s collectors, don't see Malone right away in the corner there, which you can forget. There's so much going on with the card that it's like, oh yeah, he is right there, which is so cool. Like you said, the 2 series in a row. Jordan has said that last series was the hardest, was the best win for them. You know, usually for a lot of athletes, the first one is the most meaningful, but Jordan in The Last Dance said, you know, that 98 championship was the sweetest, because how many miles they had put on as a team. You know, they had to rely on their wit more than just physical. It's a lot going on that card represents, and the PMG red doesn't represent that to me like the championship.
Yeah, you and I are probably the two of the people who sort of might feel that same sort of way. But again, the thing that I think is really interesting on this one, and you know, we'll close with this. It's just super interesting to me that 2 guys that own the card both had it in the 70s, sort of attempting not to pump their own card, but it was the rest of the community that sort of brought this one up to the level that it's at. And as the countdown was happening, Grant, I just kept looking at it going, gosh, is this thing going to break the top 50? In the end, you know, it didn't quite. But when I think about what the future of our hobby is, I think about 90s cards and the hold that they've really taken. And it makes you wonder, even though, like you say, it's not traded very often, we don't see the card very often, it's viewed as sort of one of those more iconic ghost type cards, which, hey, the Honus Wagner is very iconic. Doesn't mean it's traded all the time. It just means that it's recognizable. So any last thoughts before we leave this one?
Just that card is a pure Mona Lisa type card with all that it has going for it. We used to go on field trips to Chicago, and seeing the John Hancock building in the background and all that, the card definitely in the future could be looked at much more desirable than its counterparts right now. It's the card has everything going for it, and it's that hard to obtain that it'll be special forever. Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear you say that. A special 90s collector, Grant Slayton, somebody who obviously needs no introduction. Thank you so much for helping us cover the 1997 Metal Universe Championship of Michael Jordan with its PMG parallel serial numbered out of 50. Tomorrow, I'll be back with another guest for card number 57. And until then, happy collecting.